Kim Hana wiped her hands on the clean white towel and looked at the empty medical bay. The day had been quiet aboard the Mercy's Light. Too quiet for a medical ship traveling through the outer sectors of space. She preferred busy days. Busy days meant she could help people. The ship hummed softly around her as it moved through the darkness between stars. Hana had been working as a nurse on the medical frigate for 3 years now. It was not glamorous work, but it was important work. The Mercy's Light responded to distress calls across this part of the galaxy, bringing medical aid to anyone who needed it. Most of the crew was human, like Hana. Humanity was still new to space travel compared to the other races. They had only been exploring the stars for 50 years. The older civilizations sometimes looked down on humans as primitive newcomers, but Dr. Lee Minho, the chief medical officer, always said that being new meant they could learn from everyone. Hana, Dr. Lee called from the command station. His voice was calm but urgent. We have a distress signal. Multiple casualties on a research station, Velthari scientists. Hana immediately began preparing the medical bay. The Velthari were tall, thin beings with blue-gray skin and large dark eyes. They were known throughout the galaxy as brilliant researchers and peaceful people. What could have happened to hurt so many of them? Captain Choi Sunwoo's voice came over the ship's communication system. All medical staff prepare for emergency. We will dock with the station in 20 minutes. Reports indicate explosion in their main laboratory. 20 minutes later, the Mercy's Light connected to the damaged research station. The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and Captain Choi led the medical team inside. The station's lights flickered, and the air smelled of smoke and chemicals. Dr. Lee directed the team to different areas of the station. Hana, you take the residential section. There are injured families there. Hana nodded and hurried down the narrow corridor. The residential section was where the Velthari scientists lived with their families. She found the first injured person in a small apartment. It was a young Velthari female named Kira. She was sitting on the floor, holding her arm and making soft crying sounds. Hello, Hana said gently, kneeling beside Kira. My name is Hana. I am here to help you. Kira looked up with her large dark eyes. Fear and pain showed clearly on her face. The Velthari could not speak the common galactic language very well, but they understood it. Hurt, Kira whispered in broken common speech. Arm hurt much. Hana examined the arm carefully. It was not broken, but there was a deep cut from flying metal. I know it hurts, Hana said softly, but you are going to be okay. I will take care of you. As Hana cleaned the wound, she began to hum quietly. It was an old song her grandmother had sung to her when she was scared as a child. The melody was simple and peaceful. She did not even realize she was doing it. Something strange happened. Kira stopped crying. Her breathing became slower and deeper. The fear in her eyes faded, replaced by something like wonder. Feel better, Kira said, her voice full of surprise. Pain going away. Hana smiled and continued working. Good. That is very good. In the next room, she found an elderly Velthari, male named Theron. He had been closer to the explosion and had breathing problems from the smoke. His family stood around him, clearly worried. Please help grandfather, one of them said. He cannot breathe well. Hana set up a breathing device and placed the mask over Theron's face. The old Velthari was struggling and seemed very frightened. Without thinking, Hana began to speak to him in the same gentle voice she used with all her patients. You are safe now, she said, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. Just breathe slowly, in and out, like this. She showed him how to breathe calmly. You are going to be fine, I promise. Her voice was warm and kind. She spoke each word clearly, like she was talking to a friend. Theron's eyes focused on her. Slowly his breathing became easier. The panic left his expression. She has the star voice, one of the family members whispered to another in their own language. But Hana heard them and wondered what they meant. For the next 4 hours, Hana moved through the station treating injured Velthari. There were burns, cuts and broken bones from the explosion. With each patient, the same thing happened. When Hana spoke to them in her gentle way, When she hummed while working, the patients became calm. Their pain seemed less. They healed faster than normal. Doctor. Lee noticed it too. He found Hana in the main medical area, finishing treatment on a young Velthari child who had been badly burned. Hana, Dr. Lee said quietly, have you seen how the patients react to you? What do you mean? Hana asked, carefully bandaging the child's arm. Watch their faces when you talk to them. Listen to how their breathing changes. I have been a doctor for 20 years, and I have never seen anything like it. Hana looked down at the child she was treating. The little one was sleeping peacefully now, but when Hana had first found him, he had been screaming in pain. She had simply talked to him softly and sung a little song while treating his burns. Within minutes, he had stopped crying and fallen asleep. I just talked to them like I would talk to anyone, Hana said. They are scared and hurt. Kind words help people feel better. It is more than that, Dr. Lee said, shaking his head. Much more. As they prepared to leave the station, the surviving Velthari gathered to thank the medical team. Their leader, a tall female named Dr. Yala, approached Hana specifically. You, Dr. Yala said in careful common speech. You have gift. Voice like starlight. Touch like healing moon. We will remember. Hana did not understand what the Velthari meant, but she smiled and said goodbye. As the Mercy's light departed from the damaged station, she returned to her duties. There were always more people to help, more healing to do. She did not know that Dr. Yala was already sending messages to the Velthari homeworld, telling them about the human nurse with the impossible gift. She did not know that her simple acts of kindness would soon change everything. Hana was just a nurse doing what nurses do. But sometimes being exactly who you are is the most powerful thing in the universe. 3 weeks had passed since the rescue at the Velthari research station. Life aboard the Mercy's Light had returned to its normal routine, but Dr. Lee Minho could not stop thinking about what he had witnessed. He sat in his office reviewing medical files and recordings from that day. Park Ji-won knocked on his door. She was the ship's xenobiologist, responsible for understanding the different alien species they encountered. Her specialty was studying how different races healed and responded to medical treatment. You wanted to see me about the Velthari patients? Park Ji-won asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. Dr. Lee nodded and activated the holographic display. Look at these healing rates. The Velthari who were treated by Nurse Kim Hana recovered 30% faster than normal. Their pain levels dropped significantly within minutes of her treatment. Park Ji-won studied the data carefully. This is impossible according to everything we know about Velthari physiology. Their nervous system does not respond this way to standard pain management. That is what I thought too, Dr. Lee said. But listen to this. He played an audio recording of Hana talking to one of the patients. Her voice was soft and gentle, speaking words of comfort and reassurance. As the recording played, something strange happened. Both doctors felt a sense of calm wash over them. Their breathing became slower and deeper. The stress they had been carrying seemed to fade away. Did you feel that? Park Ji-won asked, her eyes wide with surprise. Every time I play these recordings, the same thing happens, Dr. Lee said. There is something in her voice that affects us on a deep level. Something beyond normal human speech. Down in the medical bay, Hana was caring for their current patients. The Mercy's Light had picked up 3 injured miners from an asteroid mining operation. 2 were human, but 1 was a Zephyrian, a reptilian species known for being difficult patients due to their aggressive nature when in pain. The Zephyrian, named Korax, had suffered severe burns on his arms and chest. His species typically required heavy sedation during treatment because they became violent when hurt. But as Hana cleaned his wounds, she spoke to him in the same gentle way she spoke to all her patients. I know this hurts, Korax, she said softly. But these burns need to be cleaned so they can heal properly. You are being very brave. Korax, who should have been thrashing and trying to bite the medical staff, lay perfectly still. His yellow eyes were fixed on Hana's face and his breathing was calm and steady. Never seen anything like it, muttered Dr. Kim Woo-bin, the assistant medical officer. Zephyrians usually require 3 people to hold them down during burn treatment. Hana continued her work, occasionally humming the same tune she had hummed at the Velthari station. The melody seemed to fill the medical bay with a sense of peace and safety. Captain Choi Sun-woo entered the medical bay to check on the patients. He stopped and stared at the scene before him. The normally chaotic environment of treating multiple species had been replaced by an atmosphere of calm healing. "Dr. Lee," the captain said quietly, "I need to speak with you privately." They stepped into the corridor, leaving Hana to continue her work. "We have been receiving unusual communications," Captain Choi said. "Requests for our medical services from all over this sector. The Velthari have been telling other species about our nurse with the healing voice." Dr. Lee was not surprised. "What kind of requests?" "The Karathi hegemony wants to hire her to work in their military hospitals. They are offering more money than our ship is worth. The Silicon Confederacy is requesting her presence at their medical research facility. Even the reclusive Ethereal Collective has sent a message asking about her abilities." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing yet, Captain," Choi said, "but word is spreading fast. The communications officer says we are receiving 10 new messages every day about Nurse Kim." Back in the medical bay, Park Ji-won was conducting her own quiet observations. She had set up monitoring equipment to measure the biological responses of patients while Hana worked. What she discovered made her question everything she knew about medicine and healing. When Hana spoke to patients, their brain activity changed. Stress hormones decreased rapidly. Heart rate stabilized. Most remarkably, cellular regeneration increased by measurable amounts. It was as if her voice triggered the body's natural healing processes at an accelerated rate. "Hana," Park Ji-won said after the patients had been transferred to recovery rooms, "can I ask you something?" "Of course," Hana replied, cleaning her medical instruments. "When you talk to patients, do you do anything special? Any particular technique you learned?" Hana looked puzzled. "I just talk to them like I would want someone to talk to me if I was scared and hurt. My grandmother always said that kind words are the best medicine." "Your grandmother was a nurse too?" "No, she was just a kind person," Hana said with a smile. "She took care of everyone in our neighborhood when they were sick. She taught me that healing is not just about fixing the body. You have to care for the heart and spirit too." Park Ji-won made notes on her tablet. "Have you ever noticed that patients seem to respond unusually well to your care?" "All good nurses see their patients get better," Hana said simply. "That is the point of the job." She truly did not understand that her abilities were extraordinary. To her, treating patients with compassion and gentleness was simply the right way to do things. That evening, Dr. Lee called a meeting with the senior staff. Captain Choi, Park Ji-won, and Dr. Kim Woo-bin gathered in the conference room. "We need to discuss what we have discovered about Nurse Kim," Dr. Lee began. "The evidence is clear that she possesses some kind of unique ability. The question is, what we do about it," Captain Choi said. "The requests for her services are becoming demands. Some of these civilizations are not used to being told no. We cannot treat her like a medical tool," Dr. Kim Woo-bin said firmly. "She is a person, not a resource to be traded." "But she could help so many people," Park Ji-won added. "If we could understand how her ability works, we might be able to teach it to other medical professionals." Dr. Lee looked thoughtful. "First, we need to tell her what we have discovered. She has a right to know about her gift, then we let her decide what she wants to do." None of them realized that their conversations were being monitored by intelligence networks across the galaxy. The news of a human with miraculous healing abilities was spreading faster than they could imagine. In the distant astral dominion, beings of immense psychic power were taking notice of reports about a simple nurse whose voice could heal wounds and calm the most savage species. They had ruled the galaxy through fear and mental domination for thousands of years. Now they had heard of something they had never encountered before. Power that came from compassion rather than conquest. The galaxy was about to change, and it all centered on one nurse who just wanted to help people feel better. The message arrived on a golden data crystal that appeared on the bridge of the Mercy's Light without warning. No ship had approached them. No communication signals had been detected. The crystal simply materialized on Captain Choi Sunwoo's command, chair during the night shift. When Captain Choi activated the crystal, a figure appeared as a shimmering hologram. She was tall and elegant, with silver hair that seemed to move like liquid light. Her eyes held the depth of stars, and when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who ruled worlds. "I am Empress Yun Seora of the Astral Dominion," the figure said. "By decree of the Imperial Council, the human known as Kim Hana will present herself before the throne of stars within 30 solar days. This is not a request." The hologram faded, leaving the bridge crew in stunned silence. Everyone in the galaxy knew of the Astral Dominion. They were the most powerful empire in known space, ruling over 1,000 worlds through their mastery of psychic abilities. Their telepathic nobles could read minds across star systems and bend the will of entire populations. Dr. Lee Minho was the first to speak. "They want Hana, but why?" "Because word has spread too far," Captain Choi said grimly. "The whole galaxy is talking about our nurse with the healing voice." In her quarters, Hana was reading a medical journal when Dr. Lee knocked on her door. She had finally been told about her unusual abilities 3 days earlier, though she still did not fully understand what made her different from other nurses. "Hana, we need to talk," Dr. Lee said, entering her small room. "The Astral Dominion has summoned you to their capital world." Hana looked up from her reading. "The Astral Dominion? But I am just a nurse. Why would they want to see me?" "Because you are not just a nurse," Dr. Lee said gently. "You have a gift that no one in the galaxy has seen before. They want to understand what you can do." "Do I have to go?" Hana asked. The thought of leaving her patients and her work made her uncomfortable. "The Astral Dominion does not make requests," Dr. Lee said sadly. "They give orders. If we refuse, they could destroy this ship and everyone on it." 2 days later, the Mercy's light changed course toward the Astral Dominion's capital system. The journey would take 3 weeks through hyperspace, traveling deeper into the galaxy's core than any human ship had gone before. As they traveled, strange things began to happen aboard the ship. It started small. The medical computers began running more efficiently, diagnosing problems faster than ever before. The ship's artificial intelligence started composing poetry and leaving it on crew members' personal terminals. Park Ji-won was the first to notice the pattern. All the unusual activities seemed to center around areas where Hana spent her time. The medical bay, the dining hall where she ate meals, even the observation deck where she liked to look at the stars during her free time. "The ship itself is responding to her presence," Park Ji-won told Dr. Lee. "I have been monitoring environmental systems, and everywhere she goes, air quality improves. Even the hydroponics garden is growing faster when she visits it." Dr. Lee found this hard to believe until he saw it himself. The ship's small garden, which provided fresh vegetables for the crew, had been struggling with a plant disease for months. After Hana spent an hour there, reading quietly among the plants, the disease began to disappear. The vegetables grew, larger and healthier than they had ever been. "I just like plants," Hana said when asked about it. "My grandmother had a beautiful garden. I used to help her tend it when I was little." Dr. Kang Tae-hyun, the ship's psychologist, requested a meeting with the senior staff. He had been observing the crew's behavior since the journey began. "Everyone on this ship is changing," he reported. "Stress levels are down across all departments. People are sleeping better, arguing less, working together more effectively. I have never seen anything like it." "You think Hana is causing this?" Captain Choi asked. "Not intentionally," Dr. Kang said. "But her presence seems to create an atmosphere of peace and well-being. It is as if she radiates calmness without even trying." Meanwhile, Hana continued her daily routine, unaware of the effect she was having on everything around her. She cared for the few patients they had picked up along the way, read her medical journals, and spent quiet time looking out at the stars. One evening, she was in the observation deck when young Ensign Ryu Daeho joined her. He was the newest crew member, barely 20 years old and far from home for the first time. "Nurse Kim," he said quietly. Are you scared about meeting the Empress? Hana considered the question. A little, she admitted. But I think when you are scared, the best thing to do is remember why you are there. I am going because they asked me to come. Maybe I can help someone. Even if that someone is the most powerful person in the galaxy, especially then, Hana said with a small smile. Powerful people probably do not get offered help very often. Everyone is probably too afraid to ask if they need anything. Ensign Ryu felt something he had not experienced since leaving home, a sense of safety and belonging. Just talking with Hana made him feel like everything would be all right. As they approached the Astral Dominion's capital system, the crew gathered on the bridge to see their destination. The Imperial capital was a massive structure built around an entire star. Millions of ships moved in carefully controlled patterns around the star city, and the energy readings were beyond anything they had ever measured. By all the stars, Captain Choi whispered. How do we even dock at something like that? Their question was answered when a formation of Imperial ships surrounded them. These vessels were beautiful and terrifying, made of some crystalline material that seemed to bend light around them. A communication signal reached the Mercy's light. Human vessel, you will follow our ships to the Imperial docking bay. The human Kim Hana will be escorted to the palace immediately upon arrival. As they docked with the massive station, Hana gathered her few belongings. She had no idea what to expect, but she knew she would face it the same way she faced everything else, with kindness and a willingness to help. Dr. Lee, Captain Choi, and the senior staff accompanied her to the airlock. Remember, Dr. Lee said, you have done nothing wrong. You are exactly who you are supposed to be. Hana nodded and stepped through the airlock into a corridor made of living crystal. Imperial guards, tall beings in flowing robes with eyes like galaxies, waited to escort her. As she walked toward whatever awaited her in the Palace of Stars, Hana did not know that her simple presence was already causing ripples throughout the Imperial court. Telepathic nobles who had never felt doubt in their lives were experiencing something new, curiosity mixed with hope. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when unlimited power met unlimited compassion. The Palace of Stars was unlike anything Hana had ever imagined. The walls were made of crystal that seemed to hold entire galaxies within them. Light moved through the corridors like living things, and the air itself hummed with power that made her skin tingle. The Imperial guards led her through halls so vast that she could not see the ceiling. Other beings moved through the palace, but they kept their distance and watched her with curious eyes. Some were tall and thin like the Velthari. Others were made of what looked like living metal. A few seemed to be made of pure energy that barely held a physical form. All these different species, Hana said to one of her guards. Do they all live here peacefully? The guard, whose face was hidden behind a mask of silver light, seemed surprised by the question. They serve the Empress, he said in a voice like distant thunder. Peace is not a choice they are given. Hana felt sad hearing this. In her experience, the best healing happened when people chose to work together willingly. They stopped before doors that reached higher than most buildings. The crystal surface showed images of stars being born and dying, of worlds spinning through space, of the rise and fall of civilizations. As the doors opened, Hana heard a sound like the singing of 100 choirs. The throne room was a sphere of pure crystal suspended in space itself. Through the transparent walls, Hana could see the Yaobiai, swirling colors of nebulae and the bright points of distant stars. At the center of the room sat the throne of stars, and upon it sat Empress Yunseora. The Empress was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at directly. Her silver hair moved like liquid starlight, and her eyes held the depth of space itself. Around the throne, 12 figures stood in a circle. These were the Imperial Council, the most powerful telepaths in the galaxy. As Hana walked across the crystal floor, she felt something trying to push into her mind. It was not painful, but it was insistent, like someone knocking on a door. She realized the telepaths were trying to read her thoughts. But instead of fighting the intrusion, Hana did what came naturally to her. She opened her heart and let them see who she really was. Her memories flowed freely. Working in the medical, Bay caring for patients, the quiet satisfaction of helping someone feel better. The effect was immediate. The 12 council members stepped backward as if they had been pushed by a physical force. Their perfect composure cracked, and for the first time in centuries, uncertainty showed on their faces. "Impossible," whispered Lord Kyum Jinwoo, the eldest of the council. "I cannot find any darkness in her mind. No hidden anger, no selfish desires, no fear for her own safety." "Everyone has darkness," said Lady Park Mirai, another council member. "It is the nature of consciousness itself." But as they probed deeper into Hana's thoughts, they found only what she had shown them: a genuine desire to help others, worry for her patients back on the ship, and a simple hope that she could be useful somehow. Empress Yun Seora raised her hand for silence. When she spoke, her voice filled the crystal sphere like music. "Kim Hana of humanity," the Empress said, "you stand before the rulers of 1,000 worlds. We have brought you here because reports of your abilities have reached even our distant throne. Tell us, what power do you possess that makes entire species speak of you with reverence?" Hana looked up at the magnificent figure on the throne and felt the same thing she felt when meeting any new person: a desire to understand and help if she could. "Your Majesty," Hana said, her voice clear and calm, "I do not think I have any special power. I am a nurse. I take care of people when they are hurt or sick. That is what nurses do." "Yet the Velthari speak of your voice as having the touch of starlight," the Empress said. "The Zephyrians, who are known for their violence when in pain, become peaceful in your presence. How do you explain this?" Hana thought carefully before answering. "When someone is hurt, they are scared. Fear makes pain worse. If I can help them feel safe and cared for, their bodies can focus on healing instead of being afraid." "And how do you make them feel safe?" asked Lord Kyum Jinwoo. "I talk to them like they matter," Hana said simply. "I listen to what they need. I try to see them as individuals, not just their injuries or their species." The council members exchanged glances. In their long lives of ruling through mental domination, they had never encountered someone who wielded influence through pure compassion. Lady Park Mirai stepped forward. "You claim to have no power, yet our instruments detect energy patterns around you that we have never seen before. Your presence affects the very space around you." "I do not understand what that means," Hana admitted. "I just try to be kind to people. My grandmother taught me that kindness is never wasted, even if you cannot see how it helps right away." "Empress," Yun Seora leaned forward on her throne. For the first time in 1,000 years of rule, she was genuinely curious about someone. "Human," she said, "we have conquered worlds through the power of our minds. We read thoughts, control wills, and bend entire populations to our desires. Yet when we look into your mind, we find something we cannot understand or control. What is this force within you?" Hana looked around the crystal chamber at all the powerful beings staring at her. She saw something in their eyes that she recognized from her work in the medical bay. They were afraid. Not of her, but of something they could not explain or master. "Your Majesty," Hana said gently, "maybe what you are seeing is not a force or a power. Maybe it is just what happens when someone really cares about other people without wanting anything back." "Impossible," Lord Kyum Jinwoo said. "All beings seek advantage for themselves. It is the fundamental law of existence." "Is it?" Hana asked. "When I help a patient feel better, what do I gain except knowing they are not in pain anymore? When I listen to someone who is scared, what advantage do I get except seeing them feel less alone?" The silence in the throne room was complete. The EI council members, who had spent lifetimes studying the minds of countless species, found themselves facing a concept they had never encountered: action without personal gain. Empress Yun Seora stood from her throne and walked down the crystal steps until she stood directly in front of Hana. Up close, Hana could see that despite all her power and beauty, the Empress looked tired. Tired? In a way that came from carrying too much responsibility for too long. "You speak of caring for others without reward," the Empress said, But we have ruled for millennia by understanding that every being seeks power for themselves. How can you exist as you claim to exist? Hana looked into the Empress's star-like eyes and saw something that made her heart ache. Loneliness. Here was someone with ultimate power who had forgotten what it felt like to simply be cared for as a person. Your Majesty, Hana said softly. When was the last time someone asked how you were feeling? Not as an empress or a ruler, but just as yourself? The question hit Empress Yunseora like a physical blow. In her 1,000 years of rule, no one had ever asked about her personal well-being. Everyone wanted her power, her approval, her protection, but no one had ever simply cared about her as an individual. The Empress began, then stopped. For the first time in centuries, she did not know what to say. In that moment of silence, something extraordinary happened. The crystal walls of the throne room began to resonate with a new frequency. The light that flowed through them changed, from cold silver to warm gold. Even the space outside seemed brighter, as if the stars themselves were responding to what was happening in the chamber. The council members felt it too, a sensation they had never experienced. Instead of the familiar hunger for power and control, they felt something alien and wonderful, the simple desire to help and protect someone else. What is happening to us? Lady Park Mirai whispered. Hana looked around the room and smiled. Maybe you are remembering what it feels like to care about each other. The golden light that filled the crystal throne room grew brighter as the moments passed. Empress Yunseora stood before Hana, her perfect composure completely gone. For the first time in 1,000 years, she looked vulnerable and uncertain. I do not understand what is happening, the Empress said, her voice barely above a whisper. This feeling, what have you done to us? Hana stepped closer, her expression full of gentle concern. Your Majesty, I have not done anything to you. Sometimes when we have been strong for so long, we forget that it is okay to let someone else care about us. Around the throne room, the 12 council members were experiencing their own transformations. Lord Kyum Jinwoo, who had ruled star systems with thoughts alone, found himself remembering his childhood on a distant world before he learned to use his telepathic powers. Lady Park Mirai was thinking about the billions of beings under their rule, wondering for the first time if they were happy. We have controlled minds across the galaxy, Lord Kyum Jinwoo said, his voice shaking. We have bent entire civilizations to our will, but we have never felt this. What you are feeling is empathy, Hana said simply. It means caring about others not because you have to, but because they matter. The Empress walked back to her throne, but instead of sitting upon it with regal authority, she sat down heavily like someone carrying a great burden. For centuries, we have believed that strength comes from the ability to dominate others, she said. Our empire spans 1,000 worlds because we can force obedience through fear and mental control. But you? She looked at Hana with wonder. You have more influence over people than we do, and you use no force at all. Influence is not the same as caring, Hana replied. When I help someone, I am not trying to make them do what I want. I just want them to feel better. Lady Park Mirai stepped forward. But surely you must want something in return. Recognition, payment, status among your people. Hana shook her head. The only reward I need is seeing someone feel better. When a patient stops hurting, when they smile because they are healing, that is worth more than anything else. The crystal walls of the throne room pulsed with warm light, and through the transparent ceiling they could see changes happening throughout the massive space station. Ships that had been held in rigid formations were moving more freely. The harsh artificial lighting was becoming softer and more natural. Even the air felt different, less oppressive and more welcoming. The entire capital is responding, whispered one of the council members. How is this possible? Because, said Empress Yunseora, understanding beginning to dawn in her ancient eyes, we have been ruling through fear for so long that we forgot what willing cooperation feels like. She is showing us a different way. Suddenly, the throne room doors opened and Captain Choi Sunwoo entered with Dr. Lee Minho and the senior staff of the Mercy's Light. They had been brought by Imperial guards, but instead of looking frightened, they appeared concerned. "Hana," Dr. Lee called out, "are you all right?" Before anyone could stop her, Hana ran to her friends. The sight of their familiar faces filled her with relief and joy. She had been brave in the throne room, but seeing her colleagues reminded her that she was not alone. "I am fine," she said, hugging Dr. Lee. "They have been very kind to me." Empress Yun Seora watched this reunion with fascination. The genuine affection between these humans was unlike anything she had observed in her court, where every interaction was calculated for advantage. "These are your companions?" the Empress asked. "They are my friends," Hana said proudly. "We work together to help people. Dr. Lee taught me everything I know about medicine. Captain Choi makes sure we can reach people who need help. We are a team." The word team seemed to echo strangely in the vast chamber. The council members looked at each other as if seeing one another clearly for the first time. They had worked together for centuries, but always as individuals seeking personal power within the group. Captain Choi stepped forward and bowed respectfully to the Empress. "Your Majesty, we came because we were worried about our colleague. She is very important to us." "Important because of her abilities?" the Empress asked. "Important because she is our friend," Captain Choi said firmly. "Her abilities are remarkable, but we care about her because of who she is as a person." This simple statement had a profound effect on everyone in the room. The concept of valuing someone for their character, rather than their usefulness, was revolutionary to beings who had spent millennia viewing others as tools or obstacles. Empress Yun Seora stood from her throne and walked to the center of the room. When she spoke, her voice carried across the entire space station through the communication systems. "Citizens of the Astral Dominion," she announced, "today we have learned something that will change our empire forever. We have met beings who show us that true strength comes not from the power to dominate, but from the willingness to serve others." Across the massive station, millions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen to their Empress. "For too long we have ruled through fear and control. We have demanded obedience without offering care in return. But these humans have shown us a different path. They heal not because they must, but because they choose to help others." The Empress turned to face Hana and her friends. Then, in a gesture that would be remembered throughout galactic history, she knelt before them. "Kim Hana of humanity," she said, "we formally request that your people teach us how to rule with compassion instead of fear. Will you help us learn to be better than we have been?" The entire throne room fell silent. The council members, following their Empress's example, knelt as well. Throughout the space station, beings who had lived in fear for generations felt something they had never experienced: hope for a kinder future. Hana looked at the most powerful beings in the galaxy kneeling before her, and her response was exactly what her friends expected. "Of course I will help," she said, reaching out to help the Empress stand. "But you do not need to kneel. We are all just people trying to do our best." As she helped Empress Yun Seora to her feet, the golden light in the throne room grew so bright it could be seen from ships throughout the system. The change had begun. Over the following months, the transformation spread throughout the galaxy. The Astral Dominion released its mental hold on subject worlds and began governing through cooperation instead of control. Other empires, seeing the success of this new approach, requested human advisors to help them learn compassionate leadership. Medical facilities across known space began requesting human staff, not just for their technical skills, but for their approach to patient care. The idea that healing involved caring for the whole person, not just treating symptoms, revolutionized medicine throughout the galaxy. Hana returned to the Mercy's light, but now she was accompanied by representatives from dozens of worlds who wanted to learn from humanity's example. The small medical frigate became the center of a new kind of diplomacy based on mutual aid and genuine concern for others. And through it all, Hana continued to do exactly what she had always done. She cared for patients, she spoke kindly to those who were frightened, and she hummed gentle songs while she worked. She never saw herself as anything more than a nurse doing her job. But the galaxy knew better. They had learned that sometimes, the most powerful force in the universe is someone who simply cares about others without expecting anything in return. The age of empires built on fear had ended. The age of civilizations built on compassion had begun. And it all started with one nurse who saw patients instead of aliens, people instead of problems, and hearts that needed healing instead of minds to be controlled. In the end, Kim Hana proved that the greatest strength was not the power to conquer, but the willingness to care.